Hello, welcome to today's family. I'm Dick Forbes.
And I'm Cindy Smith, and we're so happy to see you through the lens. We're glad to be here. Today's family is something that Dick and I have done for a couple of years, years ago,
yeah.
and then came back recently in the last year or so.
Our fans demanded we come back.
Oh, yeah.
Cards and letters we kept
many
getting.
fans. But we're so glad that you have joined us, and Dick is an incredible counselor here and kind of the go-to when it comes to narcissism. Not that you are a narcissist, but that you do have a lot of information.
I have personal experience with those
Well,
folks.
yes, and I think that gives you the qualifications, the professionalism, all the checks to do a program like this today. And today we are going to be talking about narcissism, and it's 11 signs that you're in a narcissistic relationship.
Right.
So I'm hoping this does help someone that's watching, or maybe you have a family member or a friend that this might help. I think this kind of breaks down and makes it easier to understand. What do you think, Dick?
Narcissism is a diagnosable disorder. And it comes with a personality disorder. Now, there are people out there who may have narcissistic tendencies, but they don't meet the criteria. And you know, if I gave us a checklist of narcissists, all of us would check some of the boxes on there. You know, just personalities that we are. But you know, it's the true diagnosis of a narcissist. It takes it to a whole different level when it comes to relating with people and dealing with people.
And that's kind of what we're talking about today, the true diagnosis.
Right.
Yeah, because I guess all of us, just go back for 2 seconds about the how we got the word narcissism. Narcissism.
Right.
Was it he looked into a
Right.
pool of water?
The Greek god, narcissist, and he looked into a pool of water and saw the reflection of himself, and he was so in love with himself that he couldn't pull himself away. And even the nymphs tried to seduce him away, but he wouldn't leave them. So that word narcissism came from the Greek god.
That's where it came from. And we all have some of the some of the characteristics.
Right.
But just to repeat one more time, this is not anything that normal people walk around with. This is something that's been diagnosed by a medical doctor.
Yeah, well, even undiagnosed, there's people out there walking around that would meet the criteria.
And maybe they wouldn't go to a doctor because they don't think anything's wrong.
That's right. Well, they know more than the doctor.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get started. Are people born narcissist, or do they develop the personality trait over time?
Well, really the operating theory right now that's out there, they don't know why specifically. I mean, they have their guesses. Some think it's genetic, you swim in the same gene pool. Some think it's neurological. But kind of the operating belief is that a child grew up in a family where they were pretty much brought up on a satin pillow. You know, they could do no wrong. It was the coach's fault, the teacher's fault, the neighbor's fault, the kid next door's fault. And so they're taught that they're just absolutely, perfect. Or the other extreme, that the child was so criticized or even abused that they're going to grow up, I'm going to get before I get gotten kind of mentality. And so those are really kind of the operating beliefs that are out there right now, is that it's either the satin pillow or the criticism and abuse over here. So, that's, kind of where we go with this. So they don't do well in therapy because, number one, they don't believe they have a problem. Everybody else is the problem. And so a lot of times they just, until someone comes to understand that their personality is destructive and it does affect other people that are around them.
So I think that's a good starting point. When you think of the diagnosis, you would immediately understand that this is destructive to themselves and to those around them.
Right.
I'm looking forward to seeing these the signs that you're in a narcissistic relationship. You do have down here, Dick, in your study, that an issue with their neurobiology, that is a connection between the brain, body, and thinking process. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it's in the brain, that they think there's a connection there somehow. Of course, that genetically, too, is a possibility with that, but somewhere the wiring up here just isn't right. And they're on some new research about this, but I don't think they've really come to any conclusive evidence that it's there. And again, when sin entered the world, everything entered the world. All diseases, personality disorders, sexual disorders, our selfishness, everything, cancer, heart disease, it all entered the world when sin entered the world. So there's no reason to not believe that it couldn't be neurological. I mean, even from a biblical standpoint, because it all entered the world.
Wow. And a personality disorder alone, any personality disorder is hard because therapy doesn't always help personality disorders.
No, my experience over the years is that it's almost a rarity when one of them truly changes. And I tend to go back to the belief that the ones that do change, it truly is a God thing. There is this spiritual awakening that takes place in them that, they realize the nature of who their personality is and the harm that it causes other people around you. I'm sure there's other exceptions out there, that may not be a spiritual awakening, but for most people, I think it comes down to that, because like you said, they don't do well in therapy.
Yeah. So just to kind of lay another foundation for here, personality disorders, obviously narcissistic behavior is a personality disorder if you've been diagnosed with that. What are some other personality disorders, just to kind of...
Well, it's called cluster B, and there's 5 of them. There's, of course, narcissism, there's borderline, there's sociopath, there's histrionic, and there is antisocial. And if you lined them all up, they would all kind of overlap to some degree, some of the characteristics of them that are in there. And, within the diagnosis, there's when diagnosing in psychiatric disorders, they have Axis 1 and Axis 2. Axis 1 tend to be those things that are fixable, mood disorders, anxiety, depression, all those things are fixable. And then you have your character disorders, which are the personality disorders, and they tend not to be fixable, over the course of trying to help somebody to change. So, and I don't want to come across as there's no hope, because there's always hope, I mean,
always.
God's much bigger than any of our thinking and our wisdom, so.
Absolutely, and I think the reason we're doing this type of conversation, Dick, is to offer hope, because with information, you can move forward. When you're swimming around in territory you don't understand with someone that you love, it's much more difficult. But when you have some knowledge and some understanding, then I feel like and I think the hope does come from that.
Right.
So let's get into the information.
All right.
All right, so what are the signs you're in a narcissistic relationship? They seem entitled.
Yeah, that the world owes them, that they're special, that the rules don't apply to them. This happened a couple weeks ago. I went to go get the grocery at Kroger down where I live, and the handicap parking is right there. It's got all the yellow stripes and everything. Well, some woman runs in that didn't have a sticker, and there happened to be a police officer that was pulling through, and he said, "Ma'am, are you handicapped?" And she said, "No, but I'm just running in for a minute." And he goes, "Well, you need to move your car." "Well, I'll be right back." "Ma'am, you need to move your car right now." And I'm just going in there for 2 seconds, and on and on. I'm thinking, why is she different than the rest of us that we have to obey that? That's kind of, I don't know if she's narcissistic or not, but that's the behavior that they exhibit. I'm special, the rules don't apply to me, it's different when I do it. And so that's that entitlement that begins to take place right there.
Wow.
I know.
And I think we've all done some of that, right?
Yeah.
To a degree. But if it keeps going on and it becomes an obvious characteristic, then that's one of the challenges. They're superior, they act superior to others.
Well, they have a very distorted view, a very distorted self-esteem, how they see themselves. The truth be told, they're very insecure people, but they want to exhibit this sense that they're better than everybody else. Again, I'm special, I'm different. the rules don't apply to me. So I'm superior to everybody else that's out there. And that distorted sense of self-esteem is they never get an accurate view of themselves. They never see themselves with faults and that they're not superior, that they put their pants on like the rest of us do. So you'll see it quite a bit where they just they look down on people because I'm better than them.
And they really believe it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what about they think people are jealous?
Well, they do. They believe, this is just nuts, that people are envious of them. That they wish they had my life, that they wish they were me. They can't read a room. And like if they walk into a room, they believe, okay, I'm here. I've arrived. Well, the rest of us are rolling our eyes behind their back, and that's what they believe, that superiority, that sense of envy, that everybody wants to be me, that everybody thinks my life is wonderful, and yet they can't read the room. They cannot read the people around them. It's just incredibly difficult for them to do that.
And they don't realize they don't.
No, not at all.
Not empathetic to your needs.
Yeah, this is empathy. A normal human being is able to exhibit true empathy. Empathy is the ability to put myself in somebody else's shoes, maybe what they're going through. If you're having a hard time in some area and I go, Cindy, I'm so sorry, that must hurt like crazy, There's that true empathy towards that other individual. Then this is a telltale sign of a true narcissistic. They have zero empathy for other people. Now, what they may do is they may mimic empathy. They may go, if they see me say to you, I'm so sorry, that must hurt, and then you respond very positively, thank you, that means a lot to me. They may model empathy. Why? Because it makes them look good. Because, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, and blah, blah, blah. Well, oh, that just means so much to me. And it's all about them. And so that ability to exhibit empathy to other people, it's just not there. And so for them to put themselves in somebody else's shoes, it's just not. But they can fake it. They can model it. They can mimic it. And many times that's what that empathy is. It's not genuine. It's not real.
But eventually, the real colors come out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When they're not getting anything out of it, when it's not feeding them and their distorted beliefs, then they'll move on,
So we're talking about, are you in a narcissistic relationship? We're talking about the 11 signs that you might be. And so now we're on manipulation. They're manipulative. Even Dick's got here gaslighting, which we've talked about before. Right.
And gaslighting, let me define that if you may not know. There was a movie back in the 40s with Ingrid Bergman, and I know we've talked about this before, and I can't remember the guy's name who was the actor. But anyway, so she marries this guy, and he's the whole package. He's good looking, he's rich, he's charming. I mean, he's the whole deal. But he murdered Ingrid Bergman's mother. And so they moved back into his mother-in-law's house, Ingrid Bergman's mother's house. And so he would buy her this expensive jewelry. And then he would hide it from her, and she's going crazy thinking she lost it. And then it would reappear, and he goes, no, it's right there. And so there were these old gas sconces in the house, and so he would slowly turn these down. And she's thinking, who's turning? Nobody's turning those down. So his manipulation was to drive her crazy. And by the end, she thinks she's murdered her mother. And so that's where that term gaslighting came from. But what it means is we distort other people's view. I didn't say that. You're crazy. That never happened. And so over time you think, well, maybe I am going crazy, kind of thing. And so it's all about manipulating people to get them to do what you want them to do. And they're masters at it. They're very good at it, I was just kidding. You're so sensitive. God, you wear your feelings on your sleeve. And so again, it discounts the other person. It makes them feel less than all the time because they're constantly gaslighting this person. It's again, if you're in a relationship with somebody like this, they're probably not going to change, and you don't have the power to change them. I promise you don't. And, so it's something you need to take a hard look at. How do I want to handle this? And it may be a family member that you're not getting rid of them. And so, but how do you manage them? Well, one, you learn their tactics. And two, you don't participate in their tactics. You have to have extremely good boundaries with a narcissist. No means no. And they may do an end run, they may pout, they may get angry, they may, make all kinds of promises to you, but no means no. And so if you're going to do this, you've got to have real thick, clear boundaries with the individual that you're with in this relationship. Otherwise, they're going to walk all over you.
And there's continue to be a lot of pain around the relationship. Yeah. The other one makes a lot of sense to me, given the definition, but they have to be admired.
Right. Yeah, and that's part of it. They're always, not always, but many times they're fishing for that compliment. Well, what did you think I did today? Did it look good to you? Constantly just trying to draw something out of people in very manipulative ways to be admired like that. And the truth be told, they believe that they're admired, but they need to be told that they're admired over and over and over again, that they're the best thing in the world. Well, that gets old, of constantly having to do that for somebody and them constantly fishing for compliments from you as an individual, because over time you just get worn out. You just truly just get worn out trying to feed the ego of this relationship. And I think what's below all this, if you really dig down low, you go back and look at the family dynamics, maybe it's genes, maybe it's neurological, but I think the bottom line comes down to this. I think it comes down to fear. The fear of what? The fear of not being loved, the fear of not being right, the fear of being rejected, the fear of somebody finding out what I'm really like and how insecure I really am. And it's not the kind of fear that you and I recognize every day. It's that fear that is just below the surface. And so they respond to the world out of fear. And it's really heartbreaking in one sense. We want to get mad at them, but in the other sense, it's kind of it's really a tragedy that they live their life like this and they don't recognize it. And so that fear that they're operating out of, they end up making a lot of fear-based decisions in life and don't even know that they're doing it.
Mm-hmm. We all know that fear-based decisions keep you in bondage.
Yeah,
There's no freedom.
Right.
Their needs come first.
Well, that's back to that empathy thing, They may say, well, yeah, we'll go where you want to go to eat. But, oh, God, look at that Mexican restaurant we just passed. Let's pull in there. But you want a Chinese, And so it's about their needs and coming first. They may say it. They may every once in a while do it. But bottom line, it's all about them and their needs becoming before anybody else's needs. And they will do everything under the sun to make sure that happens, that they're number one dog in this process. What do? They build in the manipulation. They build in, well, we had Chinese last week. Well, it's my birthday. I want Chinese. Well, okay, well, we'll go to Chinese, but there's a Mexican place right next door to it. So,
which that goes right into the next one, Dick, which is they don't really pay attention to your needs.
No. Like I say, they may do some verbal words to it. They may give lip service to it, but bottom line, your needs really don't matter. They just don't matter. It's my needs that come first, and my needs that matter in this relationship above everything else. And you may be feeling sick, maybe have a cold or something. Well, oh, come on, let's go. You're all right. You'll be okay. Here you go. Drink some cold medicine. When you feel like crud, I just want to stay in bed today. And so that's their lack of empathy that they show towards people, and you really don't matter. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with a toddler, an adult toddler is what you're dealing with.
So they're in a big grown-up body, but actually they're not mature.
Not at all. Somewhere along the line that development stopped. And,
I think that's important to point out.
Well, it is important because you think about, a 5-year-old, where do they want to eat? Well, I want to go to the candy store. Mm-hmm. We're not going to the candy store. What do? They hold their breath till they turn blue. They scream and shout and throw a temper tantrum and that kind of thing. But it's basically the same thing, that you are dealing with an adult toddler many times when you're dealing with this kind of behavior. And it's not attractive. They may have hidden it for a while to get you sucked into the relationship. But once you're in, then they want to control, they want to manipulate, they want to do everything under the sun. They want to go eat Mexican.
So, Dick, you said something that I want to expound on. You said they may hide it. Mm-hmm. So, in hiding it, do they realize that it's not? Why would they hide it if they don't see it?
Well, they hide it to entrap people. It's part of their manipulation that's up there. You've heard the word misogynist. These are men who love women but hate them. And so a true misogynist fits into that kind of narcissistic behavior, whereas on the front end, while I'm dating you, all you're going to see is how good I am. I can fix your screen door, I can do this, we'll go out tonight. But once I have you, then the mask comes off. And then my true feeling towards women begin to come out that's there. And that's what narcissists do. And so again, when it comes to your needs, on the front end, they may meet all those needs. They may be Johnny on the spot, they may be sweet, they may be kind, they may be everything that you can think of.
But it's almost like a game. They're just reeling you in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And again, it feeds them. And when it comes to your needs, the big thing is they tend to forget. Oh, I forgot. I forgot you had. Yeah. It's all about what they want and what they need.
That leads into the next one, which is they can be aggressive.
Very much so. There's some empirical evidence out there. There's some research out there that indicates, and I can't remember the study who did this, but I read about it in prepping for this. But they had interviewed 487, I think, narcissistic people, and there was true aggression, even the mild ones to the extreme ones. There was always that, but it doesn't mean they're going to be aggressive, but it means that it's there. And it might not be physical. It could be physical, it could be violent, it might just be verbal. But yeah, a lot of that passive-aggressive behavior tends to surface with them too. You criticize the narcissist, well, I'm not talking to you. And so you get the silent treatment for not hours, but days sometimes, where, you've done everything. And if you're in that relationship and you have tendencies for codependency, you're going to apologize for everything. You're going to think everything is your fault, because you're living in fear of losing that relationship, of being rejected. And this is where I go back to, you got to have those boundaries that if it's their fault, it's their fault. They may never admit it, but why own it? Why should you own it when you know you didn't do it? And, but that's that dysfunctional relationship that begins to take place right there.
What about they cannot deal with feedback?
Well, you've heard the old saying, dish it out, but you can't take it. That's exactly what that is. Any kind, they're prone to be critical. They're prone to point out, the deficiencies in other people. They're prone to make themselves look good. They put other people down to make themselves feel better. But when you give them any kind of feedback or criticism, boy, they just, that's where the aggression can come in, and they'll want to turn it around on you. Like if the narcissist is chronically late, you point out how rude you think that is or how insensitive. Well, you remember the time you were late, don't you? I mean, there's that redirection, obviously. You may have been late one time, they were late, 100 times. And so there is that true inability to, to receive. And this is why, again, they don't do well in therapy, because you call them out on their behavior and on their stuff. Well, we need to go find another therapist. We need to find somebody that knows what they're doing, Or, well, we tried therapy and I'm not going back. It's stupid, And they didn't know what they were doing, because, you're the one that's the problem, not me, And you've probably done this in your coaching, you ask people, well, why are you here? What brings you in for this? And, well, the narcissist, well, I just came along, I'm just here because, won't take responsibility. It's not in their nature.
It's got to be so hard. It's almost like if you're in a relationship, friendship, whatever, with a narcissist, it's like you cannot be your true self. You can't be honest.
You're always on guard.
Yeah, because it's like walking around on eggshells and like I don't want to upset them. I don't want to.
Right.
It's a hard one.
Well, you remember that scene from Forrest Gump?
No.
Run, Forrest, run.
Run, Forrest, run.
That's always and again, I'm not saying, if you're in a marriage relationship, you try to work those things out. You do your best. You want to honor the covenant that you have. But I understand that living with somebody like this, it can be a danger to your life in some cases. So, I've worked with them over the years where, the narcissist had the affair. And they don't take responsibility. Well, they're at home. They just ignore me all the time. They're not affectionate. They're not anything. So how do you get my needs met? And, again, they will constantly turn it around. And I always ask the question, what gave you the right to do that? Well, most normal people will go, I didn't have the right to do that. The narcissist, I don't know. Well, my needs weren't being met at home. And many times that's the context of a relationship sometimes with the codependent and the narcissistic person that's there. So it is important that you get this addressed and work on this. It's important that you if you're going to stay in that relationship, and like I said, sometimes it's blood, so there's no getting out of the gene pool with them. They're going to show up at Christmas every year. And so I've got to learn some coping skills, and some of the things we talked about already. Get yourself into counseling and talk with somebody that understands this kind of relationship and also understands that maybe you are that codependent person, maybe you are the fixer, maybe you are the caretaker, maybe you are the kind one, but you're going to get romped and stomped and stepped on, quite a bit until you learn to have those boundaries with these folks.
Yeah, I think the narcissist, and correct me if I'm wrong, they don't really prey on really strong people, right? They go more, they try to have relationships with people that they know that they're stronger than.
That's exactly right. That's a good point. That's an excellent point, yeah. And they will find them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, probably, way back when, it was probably diagnosed that majority of narcissists were men. But in recently in our culture, in the past 20 to 30 years, that has statistically changed where it's almost equal now. Men and women exhibit that kind of narcissistic behavior. But historically, it's been mostly men. And on any given day in our culture, probably, maybe 7 to 10% of people are diagnosed with some kind of personality disorder. And that's a pretty heavy-duty diagnosis, too, to have something like that. But that's just the diagnosed ones. That doesn't include the other ones that are, out there running around.
Yeah.
Well, it's good for us, because people come to see us because they're coming to see us because of them.
Yeah. Which we hope you would, to get help, because this is not an easy thing to deal with. Mm-hmm. What about the 11th one? Is they're obsessed with success.
And they are. There's that sense of power, grandiosity, dominance that they want in their life over other people. So, they tend to inflate their success quite a bit. Let me tell you how good I am. Let me tell you how great I am. Let me tell you, what other people say about me that's out there. And, I recently read a great book, and I can't remember the author's name. It's called When Narcissism Comes to Church. And it was so good because it was just kind of describing what's taking place within our church cultures many times, that they're in the pulpit. And that we go to church with
set
these
up
people.
for spiritual abuse.
Yeah, it's exactly very toxic in the faith with that too. So,
Well, we have a few more seconds. Dick, how would you like to close us out?
Well, I hope this was helpful more than anything, and I hope it's not discouraging. I hope it was, giving you some hope that, okay, I've got to go do something about this. I recognize the relationship I'm in, so I got to do something about it.
Yeah, and do your part in making it healthy, especially for yourself.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it was so good being in your home, wherever you are.
Yep.
So
Thank you, and
take
God
care.
bless.
Next time.
Bye.